Hey, as you can tell, I'm right here beside the church today. We're going to be wrapping up Romans 15 this week, beginning in the 14th verse and going on. And Paul's talking about leadership and the marks of a leader. I want to share this story with you. Now, some of you are going to remember the famous radio journalist Paul Harvey and his famous rest of the story segments. Well, he told the story of this physician whose character resembled that of Paul, the author of Romans. Now, this story is told by Paul Arant in the more of Paul Harvey's The Rest of the Story, and it's actually summarized by Chuck Swindoll. So listen with me, if you will. Like most physicians of great experience, Dr. Evan O'Neill Kane had become preoccupied with a particular facet of medicine. His strong feelings concerned the use of general anesthesia in major surgery. He believed that most major operations could and should be performed under local anesthetic. For, in his opinion, the hazards of general anesthesia far outweighed the risk of the general surgery itself. For example, patients with heart trouble or anesthesia allergies ran the risk of severe complications when placed under general anesthesia for surgery. Kane's medical mission was to prove to his colleagues once and for all the viability of local anesthesia. It would take a great deal of convincing. To prove the viability of major surgery using only local anesthetic, Kane would have to find a patient brave enough to go through what he hoped all patients would one day experience: major surgery without the dangers of general anesthesia. In his 37 years as a surgeon, Kane had performed nearly 4,000 appendectomies. This freed him from worrying about the complications of the surgery and focusing on the local anesthesia aspect. Having found a volunteer, he proceeded. The patient was prepped in all the normal ways, but in the operating room was giving only local anesthetic. Now, as he had 1,000 times before, Kane entered the abdomen, slicing tissues and clamping blood vessels as he went. He located the appendix. The surgeon nimbly clipped it away from its surrounding tissue, folded the stump back in place, and sewed up the patient's wound, all with the patient being wide awake and experiencing only minor discomfort. After a restful recovery of 2 days, faster than most general anesthesia cases, the patient was released from the hospital to recuperate at home. Kane had achieved his goal: to demonstrate that successful general surgery could be accomplished without the risk of general anesthesia. Now, since Dr. Kane's experiment in 1921, his breakthrough technique has changed the face of surgery, but not only for scientific reasons. For Dr. Kane's name was added to a short list of pioneers in the medical field who, so utterly convinced of the validity of their theories, chose to use them first on themselves. You heard me right. Kane's first volunteer appendectomy patient was none other than himself. To prove his theory regarding local anesthesia, Dr. Evan Kane had removed his own appendix. It's long been said that great leaders ask their followers to go nowhere they have not been first themselves. Where severe physical pain was a possibility, a doctor chose to test his theory on himself before asking anyone else to run the risk. And where losing one's entire life was at stake, Luke 14, the Apostle Paul chose to demonstrate personally what he wanted the church in Rome and the believers in all the churches he started to do. See, Paul's life is at the heart of this last section of the letter to Rome, to the Roman believers. And the gospel was at the heart of Paul's life. Not in so many words. Paul would never set out to boast about himself. Rather, in concluding his letter, 4 aspects of his life are visible to the reader who looks closely beneath the surface of his words. Paul was a builder of the church. Paul was a servant of the church. Paul was a shepherd of the church, and Paul was an apostle of the church. Something to think about. See you Sunday at 11 o'clock. God bless.